should be a clickable link in there for you.
Okay.
Should make it easier. I hope. I just sent it, so should be okay.
It'll be here in a minute.
No rush. We're okay.
Okay.
It's good.
Thanks.
No rush. No rush at all.
I'll be on in a minute.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can hear.
All right.
Yes.
How are you?
Oh. Great.
Yeah.
If you believe that one.
Sure.
I got a bridge. I got a
Sure.
There he is. I got a bridge for you. If you believe that one. I am really, really late with my sharing here. Hang on. Pastor Best, my Zoom introductions to Pastor Frederick.
All right.
Hello. Pastor Frederick, much to your benefit, Pastor Best got a head start on me on Saturday as I whined to him a bit. Lost myself quite a good bit there.
That's what I was there for. No problem.
Gonna be a interesting couple days.
I'm sure.
Okay. Oh boy. I was all proud of myself for getting up here early and getting everything together, and now, as usual, I'm behind. I always feel like I'm behind. What I'm trying to do is do all the Facebook sharing and the all that fun stuff. Post. And here. There we go. We can monitor this over here. Share. Create a post. Okay. We're gonna be just a tad behind. We'll do my best to catch up. This is the last one for a while. I'm hoping only a couple weeks, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Admit. Who else am I missing? Anybody? No, 4. Should do that. I don't know where George is actually. Open and share. Oh goodness. As soon as I know she's fully here, I will do my fancy Zoom introductions, gentlemen.
Fine.
And Pastor Clinton. Right there. 601. Okay, I'm gonna have to have a go here. Let's get into this screen. I see Pastor Clinton's feet.
I know.
There she is. That's fantastic.
I'm still in church.
What a great start. Nice feet. Hey, all right. You know, to each their own. Okay, let's kick this thing off. Session 1. Session 2. And off we go.
Kennedy, 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 Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
and young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy,
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. 'Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy.
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy,
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
we'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere on this planet Earth. The only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 23rd of March 2025. We are live right now on the Facebook pages of all of the following, and some I still need to get to yet because I started late, as usual, perpetually late. We are live on the Facebook pages of the TCP Media Group, Our Revolution Pennsylvania, Hot101.net, Ghost Claw Productions, and of course the home group Facebook page for all things that surround our program, That Other Side of Information. It's also the name of one of our YouTube channels, That Other Side of Information, but we're also live on the YouTube channel of Ghost Claw Productions Radio, because my ego is just that bloody big that one YouTube channel just isn't enough. We've got to have two, don't we? We, of course, are live on the radio, blasting around the globe via two global internet radio stations. One of the very first, and one of the most newest. Let's go newest. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere below, on, or above Earth, you can listen to Hot101.net. You can listen through our main website, which I just said a whole bunch of times, Hot101.net, but also through our apps. Apple App Store for Apple devices, the Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn radio app. Go up to the search bar and type in Hot101.net, and you're listening on any type of device, because if you don't have Apple or Android, it works on all of them, or TuneIn works on all of them. Let me also tell you that you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net as well. Our other radio station, of course, is not really, I almost kind of hate putting it that way. Our other radio station makes it sound like a side thing. It's not. Is GCPR.live, Ghost Claw Productions Radio.live, GCPR.live. Go to our website where you can listen for free, but you can also find out everything that you ever wanted to know about our radio station and more. Find out about the hosts, the shows, our schedule, upcoming events. You can contact us. There's just a lot of things that you can do at our website. You can, I'm pretty sure you can contact us. You can, I don't know, yell at me. Tell me you love me. Tell me you hate me. Tell me I have a face made for radio. I already knew that. But you can reinforce it if you wish. I'm good. It works. But everything that you need, our merchandise store is there as well. Thomas would certainly have my head if I didn't mention that. But you can find us there, gcpr.live. Everything that you ever wanted to know about us and more at gcpr.live. A hearty welcome to all of you. This will be my last live program with you for quite a while. I suspect, if I'm really lucky, 2 weeks. I suspect it'll be more along the lines of a month, could be even longer. And I will get into that further into the program. Now, I am missing... No, I'm not missing. I thought somebody else was maybe in the Zoom. I'm not missing. We're expecting George at some point. George has tremendous family obligations. He was one of the best human beings that you're ever going to want to meet. And he does a lot for family, like way more than you would ever imagine. So I think that's where he is now. But he'll be along. You'll be stuck with him, same as you're stuck with me. I'm sure he's going to love that I said that, but it's the truth. He'll be along. At some point, we're expecting him. Whoops! Not a good thing when you leave the speaker on another device. Not good. Not good radio. It's bad enough you have to listen to it once. You don't want to hear it reverberate. It's not good stuff. That said, let's get to our program. I have been touting this program for quite a while, letting you know that everything would be revealed tonight. I would tell you what's been going on and all of that fun stuff, and I wanted to have what I originally billed as the pastoral roundtable, and I guess theoretically it will be until possibly after 7:30 when the rabbi joins us. Then it will turn into the religious roundtable. But for now, I'm being very exact with my language, aren't I, everybody? I'm being very exact with my language. We're a pastoral roundtable at this point. I am very pleased to welcome back to the well, I will do this in a very old-fashioned way. Ladies first. Very happy to welcome back to the program, not just my friend and a wonderful pastor, but also a fellow host here at GCPR.live, the host of Heart to Heart, Wednesdays from 9 to 11, if I'm not mistaken. That's Pastor Clinton is here with us, also a fellow host at the station, Pastor Matthew Best, who's the host of Impolite Company, the third Saturday of each month, if I am not mistaken.
It would be the first and the third Sunday.
Now you're... Wait a minute. That's a change.
First and third Sunday.
That's a change
That's
I
what
want.
It's been the whole time, Jeff.
It's a change that I want submitted to me in writing, because I don't think I've. And Pastor Kevin Frederick is here with us as well. He is a returning guest to the program. I think you're I guess depending on how you look at it, you're either a 3-time winner or a 3-time loser. I guess it depends on how you look at it. I think this is your 3rd time back to the program. But, and of course, Randall has already mentioned in the chat, my friend Kevin Frederick. Yes, Randall, we know. Randall was kind enough to introduce me to Kevin in the first place. So, welcome one and all, and thank you for being here on what I have kind of built up as a pretty special program. It means a lot that you would take the time to be here. I appreciate it. And why don't we just go round real quick and let the audience know, above and beyond anything that I may have messed up, including Pastor Best Showtimes, anything that I may have messed up or missed, if you could just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves as we work around the table here. Pastor Clinton, why don't I be old-fashioned, say ladies first, and reintroduce yourself to everybody, say hello, and any opening thoughts that you wanted to share.
I'm Pastor Gia Clinton with Straight to the Heart Ministries. We're located in Sharon Hill, Pennsylvania. The subject tonight is it's something we all have to face, and I know that God has a lot to say in regard to that subject, with regard to the stages of life and the stages of death. And I'm looking forward to sharing what I believe is what the Word's perspective on death and eternal life and life beyond. So that's all I have to say. I'm just looking forward to get right into this, gentlemen.
Kevin, why don't you go ahead, reintroduce yourself to everybody and any opening thoughts that you might have. And again, you got a head start on everybody yesterday. Kevin played psychiatrist yesterday and did it masterfully as I whimpered and whined for almost an hour.
My name is Kevin Frederick. I'm a retired Presbyterian minister. I have been a minister of 4 congregations over 40 years, and retired 4 years ago now, and enjoying retirement. I highly recommend it. I have also done work on developing a curriculum that addresses men's propensity to violence, and particularly their relational skills with others, and particularly family members. So that has been a lot of what I've been doing since retirement, as well as working with the local NAACP.
Pastor Best.
Yeah, so I'm Matthew Best. I am the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's in the heart of Allison Hill, which is the most economically challenged section of Harrisburg, and one of the most challenged sections in the eastern half of the state. I'm also the executive director of the health ministries that operate out of the church. We have 3 free health clinics that serve numerous people. Generally, we say that we have at least 10,000 visits over the course of a year, and makes a huge impact. Also an author and blogger, and this is one last thing. I'm running a half marathon next Sunday, so you timed this for my marathon. My half marathon is timed good.
Yeah, next Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday.
Yeah. Happy to eat into the training time, Pastor.
Right,
yeah,
that's okay. I would just say, as far as opening comments, I've talked about this numerous times on my own show, and I've preached about this, is the idea that as a society, American culture, we are horrible when it comes to dealing with talking about death, mourning, anything like that. So I don't know about excited, but I'm because it's not an exciting topic, right? But it's actually just very hopeful to be able to just have an open conversation about matters of life and death in a healthy way. And so I'm just honored that you asked me to be a part of this conversation.
Well, it's no surprise to anybody that Kennedy Effect and TKE Tonight is a heavily political program, if not almost exclusively. And I would be remiss if I didn't do a touch of that with the 3 of you before we get into what I have been joking about for about a month now, is the lighter topics of of life, death, and what comes next. And I don't want to overly control the conversation when there's multiple people in the room. We're actually pretty good at not talking over each other. I've never really had that problem, so I don't want to be that heavy-handed. Again, tonight I just want to keep the floor open as much as possible. But from your perspectives as faith leaders, is there any way to really put your head and your heart around where this nation is at this moment in history? Anybody that wants to have at it, feel free.
It's funny because I was talking to my congregation about that very subject. After church, we had coffee and discussion, and people are very concerned about, for instance, IRS workers. Thousands of them have woke up to job loss. And it's almost as if the country is being toppled in a way that it's going to put pressure on the states and on the state's economy to cripple it. It very much reminds me of the frailty of our democracy and the pressure that it's not only going to put on the states but also on the churches, because when people are hungry and government funds run out, and well, state funds, because there aren't any government funds coming to us, but they're going to be looking to the church, they're going to be looking to local government to try to fix what's wrong. And I think the church is now bearing a greater responsibility than it's aware of. We can't just kind of coast through this. We have to have things and programs in place to help families as much as we can for what's coming. And we would be remiss in our duty to say, miracle is going to happen and suddenly a dictator is going to disappear, or this is not really happening. It is happening. And it all seems to line up with Bible prophecy and what was foretold, thousands of years ago, that this is coming, and it seems like a lot of this is lining up, and we are here, and we're looking at the possibility of famine. We're looking at the possibility of food shortage. Well, I mean, it's the portions and rations. If you go to the grocery store, I mean, I joked about it on my podcast. I spent $14 on a dozen eggs. So it is getting to be ridiculous. And the thought of so many thousands of people across the country being out of work with a necessary component to our government, like the IRS, it's scary. And it's happening everywhere. For instance, I heard on the news, they were saying that any judge that challenged him, he wants to impeach them. So
it's more than that. It's more than that. Very underreported, and you would have thought that I would have Googled this by now, and I've been remiss in doing it. There's another judge who ruled against him on a different case that Trump took to Truth Social to say that someone should, quote unquote, take a shot at this guy. The judge is now under 24-hour protection.
Oh my God.
From police and his own private security, he and his family, both in the courtroom and at home. One of the very all too well used steps in the fascist playbook is to delegitimize the judiciary, and if you can't dismantle the judiciary, then just discredit it, disregard it, ignore it, make it irrelevant. Trump is doing both. He's looking at he's not mentioning impeachment by accident. He's mentioning impeachment because he wants these people replaced with whomever he chooses to put in place. But also, if he can't do that, and of course there is just a little small thing called the Constitution to stop that from happening, he will delegitimize it. And this administration is openly ignoring the courts. Now, the courts have always been paid attention to largely on an honor system. If you really, really think about it, a judge says, no, you can't do that, that's against the law, or it's unconstitutional, or it flies in the face of legislation that has been passed by Congress or a state legislature or even a town council to say, no, you can't do that. And then the party that's been told, no, you can't do that, stops doing it. And they do it largely on the honor system. The judiciary has a very thin enforcement mechanism. Local judges have local police, courtrooms have a bailiff, legislatures have a sergeant at arms, but federal courts don't exactly have police they can disperse to enforce these things. And even if they did, this current regime is certainly not going to allow any of their federal police forces to enforce anything against this regime.
That's right.
So this is fascist play. This is fascist 101. They did this to the courts in the South before the Civil War. Mussolini did it to the courts in Italy. Hitler did it to the courts in Germany. Erdogan has done it to the courts in Turkey. In fact, just on Friday, the mayor of Istanbul was jailed because he was nominated by the opposition party to run for president against Erdogan. So, of course, we threw him in jail. Orban has done the same thing in Hungary. This is fascist 101. But Kevin, if I might, how do we square? 30% of the country has made a choice that this is what they want, and supposedly one of the rationale that they've used for wanting this is their Christianity. Now, generally, when I'm confronted with the idea of that, I usually ask which Christianity.
What's God?
The book or the corporate one?
Wow.
You know, Jesus Christ or corporate Jesus? Which one? How do you square that for you yourself as an American, as a minister, as an educator of ministers? How do you square the use of the faith that you've built your life on to justify pretty much everything that's anti-faith?
Well, to start out with, if you look at the whole idea behind Musk, who devalues empathy, in fact, he's called it civilizational suicidal empathy. Now think of that for a minute. Empathy, if we know anything about Jesus Christ, we know he was a man of great compassion and empathy for people, for the stranger, for the marginalized, for the outsiders, for those people who were different, for women, for children. And none of this squares up with this idea of civilizational suicidal empathy. That is so counterproductive to what we believe as Christians that it is quite alarming to me that Christian nationalist leaders are saying there should be a limit to empathy in this country. There was an NPR statement yesterday, or an NPR program for 5 minutes yesterday, and that was part of what the leaders of Christian nationalist organizations and churches are saying to their congregants and to their people. It is a time for us as people of faith to stand up and to acknowledge the Lord that we serve and to be bold. And at the same time, how do we do that and be humble? Because that's part of who we are as Christians. It's a combination of both, and that's a challenge, but we can't do it with a sense of, oh, it'll all blow over, and a sense of a weak response. We must be strong in the way that we confront this terrible menace to not only our society, but to the world. When USAID has been dismantled, it's just, there is no empathy in this leadership. It's a total vacuum of caring and compassion, and that is so foreign to Christianity in its true form.
That's true.
Pastor Best, it would seem to me that churches are in a bit of a conundrum here. That inherently, or traditionally, maybe that's a better word. Traditionally, churches are not political. And while the word tells us that good faith acts as you do unto the least among me, has always been one of the functions of the church, it would seem to me that it is not the sole or not solely the function of churches to fill in the places where government, and arguably only government, can provide. How do you, as someone who's been, had a double career here and who's been, from Capitol Hill to the pulpit, quite literally from Capitol Hill to the pulpit, how do you square that between the responsibilities of government, but yet the moral responsibilities of the church family, and on top of that, the church family having to fill in for where government has very purposefully walked away, and yet somehow walked away under the guise of faith. This corporate, this new corporate faith, this prosperity doctrine.
So I would actually differ a little bit with the idea that the church is not political. And I think part of that comes from a definition of what political is, right? The church is called to be nonpartisan here in the United States, which is not the same thing as political, right? I think we all kind of understand that. Partisan is aligned with a political party. Political, though, has to do with how a society makes decisions and empowers and all of that, right? And so the gospel itself is political in nature. I mean, if you take a look at the birth of Jesus, what happens is you see the titles that are attributed to Jesus, and the gospel writers took the titles that belonged at the time to Caesar and put them onto Jesus. If that's not a political move, I don't know what is. And in his crucifixion, he doesn't die. He's not executed because he's a nice guy going around being a do-gooder, offering free health care and feeding people. He's a threat to Rome. And what's labeled across on the top of the crucifix is the King of the Jews, a political title. And so there's this notion, and it's probably more of an American notion of, right, we have this tradition of separation of church and state. There's a lot of good reasons for that. I'm not saying that we should get rid of that, because then you start getting into theocracies. This is Christian nationalism, all that type of. I'm a big fan of separation of church and state. It creates far more problems having those together, and history is just loaded with the examples of why combining the two is a bad idea. So part of me is then also taking a look at, like you mentioned, the church has often kind of filled in the gap, and there's to say, well, the church should do this, not government. And when people say this, I often end up coming back with, where are the resources coming from for doing all the things that you're claiming the church is going to be able to do? I mean, like the church that I serve, Christ Lutheran in Harrisburg, we have 3 free health clinics. The church itself is a poor church. 90% of our funding does not come from within the congregation. It's a poor congregation. The expected contribution of the congregation is about $20,000. That's it. And that's to run everything, right? That 90% of the rest of the budget comes from other churches. It comes from foundations. It comes from grants, like from the United Way. We don't receive a single penny from any type of government funding at all. And we're always struggling to make sure that we can make our budget. We're struggling to make sure that we can actually do the things that we do. And the reality is, we're at the very bottom of the healthcare system. And I've said this before, where if the healthcare system worked the way it was supposed to, our clinics wouldn't exist. They'd have no need to exist, because people were being taken care of, because they would have somewhere to go, because the community clinics weren't overburdened, or because they were able to hire enough healthcare providers. All of those type of things. They wouldn't be turning people away based on legal status, or if they had a criminal record, or whatever the case may be. So there's this kind of, there's this easy abstract idea of, the church can fill in, without thinking about how does that actually work. When the other thing is, most churches, I should say, do not have huge staffs. I know for myself, there's myself. I'm the only full-time employee, and I have a part-time secretary, a part-time bookkeeper, a part-time custodian, and then all of the clinics One of the clinics is staffed by nurses from Penn State Health. They pay for those, but the other clinics are by volunteers. They're volunteering their time, so they're on their day off from what they do professionally. They come in and do the same thing without getting paid, which is amazing. And again, if healthcare worked the way it's supposed to, then this should not exist. But unfortunately it does. And so this is kind of the idea where we get a lot of folks like really glad about charity. But if we fixed the systems and we fixed the things so that charity was unnecessary, which will never happen, of course. But if we could like reduce, it's kind of like you've heard these stories about like, oh, isn't it great that this community raised, $100,000 for this kid to have surgery? Yes, and why are they having to raise money for a necessary surgery?
Yep.
That's ridiculous. And so I think that part of the role ultimately is the church has a responsibility to be a moral voice, to kind of like Bishop Buddy, the Episcopal bishop of Washington D.C., who again received death threats and all these things because what she preached and what she proclaimed was the gospel message, and it was directly to government officials and saying, have mercy. That if that's not a Christ-centered message, I don't know what is. And that's exactly what the role of the church is to say, not to say here's exactly how you're going to do this or anything like that, but to say, look, for those of you who are followers of Jesus, remember, this is what we're called to, and that's actually better for the rest of society as well.
I want to get to one quick comment in the chat. Watching on Twitch, how I have no idea, because I didn't even think I was going to Twitch, but apparently I am, and that's fine. Pretty darn good with that. From screen name Polar Nights. As a barber, I love this podcast. It has every stage of beard growth. Love it. Thank you. I'll take it. Absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best comments I've had on my programs probably since I got a death threat. One of the best bloody comments ever. I wish I could screenshot this if I knew how, and I'd frame that. That's absolutely brilliant. That I want to welcome, of course, my friend George has a lengthy and very accomplished resume in his life. Very, very, very low bottom in exceptionally small print on that resume is that he has been my friend for 2 decades now, if I'm correct, and is the first person outside of, April Riddick, who caused all of this mess upon all of you. As soon as I said I was going to start this program, said I'm in. I didn't even describe it. I didn't ask a question, didn't say how I was going to do it, didn't tell him what we were going to do. He just said, I'm in. Whatever it is I'm in, I want to help and I want to be part of it, and he has been since day one. So
I just augmented the mess. That's all. I just made it
stir the pot occasionally, young man.
There you go.
Let's be honest about that. I want to welcome Cole Goodman, who is going to be the guest host of this program for as long as I'm away. And even while he is guest hosting, if I can gather a few minutes of strength here and there, I may be in to bother him and to do things like that. But Cole will be the new guest host of this program for as long as I am away. And following what I hope to be a return, because I'm not convinced of it, but what I hope to be a return, Cole will, of course, have his own program joining the lineup here at gcpr.live as soon as we can figure out exactly when he's going to do that as a full-time football coach. Real football with your feet, football the way God intended it, no pun intended to the clergy in the room, but that said, the way it was meant to be played. And I also want to welcome my partner, my 50% straight down the middle partner at gcpr.live, Thomas the Villain Bishop. He will be following us immediately after we're done here, assuming that I can shut up on time, at 9 o'clock with the Villain's View. I invited everybody because George is always part of the program. Cole is taking over, and Thomas is my partner. So I wanted everybody to be here tonight. I want this to be, this is going to be a heavy conversation, make no doubt. But I also am hopeful that we can share some laughs, have a couple, fun memories of the program, get you all introduced to Cole, who has been a guest on the program repeatedly. He's not an unfamiliar face to any of you, and kind of let you know what's going to be happening. But I want to put out one last political question before we switch into the light topics, he said, wink, 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 to the lighter topics of life and death and the afterlife and so on. In my phone conversation with Kevin yesterday, which was quickly devolved into a very weepy psychiatric session, I had explained to him, and I can throw this out, I guess, to everyone, Democrats are taking a lot of grief. Some of it very rightfully so. The change that Democrats made in the 90s, the so-called Clinton revolution, where we welcomed big money, welcomed big insurance and big banks into the room, walked away, in part, I never fully believed it was to the extent that the media has made of it, but walked away from middle America and the Farm Belt. That we've been beat up really since then, that we don't know how to talk to people. We don't know how to message to people. And it occurred to me while I was driving to work, of all things, on Friday morning, that I don't know that that's wrong, but I don't know that it's right either. And here's what I mean. Only about 60% of the population voted in this last election. Trump got 49.8% of that vote. He has never gotten more than 50% of the vote, period. And only once has ever broken 50% in an approval rating in a national poll. So if we already know that only about 60% of the eligible voters voted, and then we take the percentage that, and he got a clear majority, he won the election. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I'm not here to relitigate the election. But really, only about 30% of the population put him back in office. And we get a lot of grief for not knowing how to talk to that 30%. And I think there's a lot of different factors. That 30% simply doesn't want to talk to us. A good portion of that 30% was just as soon shoot me because I'm a Kennedy and I'm a Democrat. Trump has talked about putting all of us in concentration camps simply for being Democrats. But it occurred to me that maybe it's not so much that we don't know how to message to them, as much as it is we don't know how to talk to them at all. Because how do you talk to someone who has openly, by choice, willingly signed away everything that we've ever built this country on? 30% of this country's decided democracy's okay if it goes away. They're good with that. They're good with a strongman government. They're good with immigrants, legal or otherwise. They're good with people of a different skin color. They're good with Democrats being rounded up and put behind barbed wire fences. They're good with that. That's okay with them. They've made the open decision that while I'm starving, while I can barely keep a roof over my head, while I forego my own prescriptions and meals for my children, as I continue to work 2, 3, 4 jobs, he hates black people just like I do, and I'll take that trade. I'll take the trade that I'm going to risk the ability to even continue to exist because he hates who I hate. To hell with messaging to that. How do you even talk to that? How do you even have a conversation with that, let alone politically message to it?
I have 2 words for you.
Go ahead, sir.
You don't.
Well, that's...
No, I need you to really listen to me. You don't. Why is it? And I've had a kind of a conscience of something over the past day and a half. I went to go see Senator John Ossoff. And what I thought was going to be one of those listening parties where Georgians get a chance to tell him, hey, this is what we have going on. This is how we feel. We need to deal with this. We need to mobilize. It turned out it was a campaign rally.
Yeah.
And
he kicked off his re-election campaign, we should say,
yes,
running for a second term to the United States Senate.
I don't think I've ever been more disappointed. Ever. I don't think the bar for Democrats, as far as I'm concerned, is in the basement of hell. And they still can't. They can't get under it. They can't get over it. They can't. We have a coalition on this side of the political. It is bigger than what the Republicans have. It is stronger. It is more grassroots. It is about more diverse than anything this country has ever seen. Why? In the name of all the gods, all of them. Why in the name of all the gods do we keep reaching out to those same white folk? Why? I get it. I understand. This country is a majority white country. I will never argue that until 2050.
Not by much, and I think it's going to be before 2050, by the way.
But you mean to tell me, with all the great ideas that come from it, because let's just all call it what it is. The Republican Party has not had a good idea, hasn't had an idea, let alone a good one, since 1980. The same 2 damn ideas. State level, federal level, local level. Same 2 ideas. Tax cuts and deregulation. And yet, you have not just a wellspring of new ideas on the left, not just an ocean of new ideas on the left, but a damn tidal wave tsunami of new ideas, fresh ideas, better ideas, ideas that help everyone. And yet, every year, every election cycle, we have to stop forward progress to go back to listen to some, I'm just going to say it, this is who I am, some Caucasian man talk about the way things used to be. I'm sorry, no, nostalgia doesn't do it for me. You know what's funny? The backbone, the absolute vertebral backbone of the Democratic Party right now is black women. I have yet to hear them make one town hall, make one outreach to black women. Black women have been the true north of our democracy for decades, and they never get heard. Black women, when what's his face in Alabama was running, Roy Moore.
Yep.
Black women are like, we ain't vote for him. And we're just not gonna vote for him. He's dirty. There's something wrong with him. We're not gonna vote for him. What happened? He lost.
And they ended up being right.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying.
It ended up coming out, and they ended up being correct.
They always point to true north. The Democrats never ask them anything. Never. When is the last time you saw a group of Democratic consultants and campaign consultants drive their ass to predominantly black parts of town to talk to black women about their issues? When's the last time you've seen it? You haven't. But guess what? In 2028, will be all trekking to that one diner in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where everybody in there is over the age of 85, and they will talk about the time that they used to be able to say the N-word, and all we could do was smile. How's it working out for us?
So how do we square that then?
By telling
With
our
the fact
elected
that
leaders enough.
That one of their own, when you talk about black women being true north, one of their own just ran for president. So how do we square that?
And look at what happened to her. Why was it? I won't even go with Vice President Harris right quick. I won't even go with him. I'll go with Biden. Why was Biden's age a problem, but Donald Trump's age wasn't? He is exactly 4 years younger than that man. And that man has been in cognitive decline since he slunk down the escalator. He Kofefi, me and some old NCO friends of mine, we used to just text each other when we were in Korea. Kofefi, MFer. Well, you Kofefi to you too, sir. We still do it. Hey, man, what's going on, Kofefi? Not me. He praised Hannibal Lecter. He said Frederick Douglass was doing better or doing more and more and being recognized more and more. Frederick Douglass. Why are we talking? But Biden is a little bit too old. He's cognitive decline. Donald Trump has tapioca pudding for brain. Why are we reaching out to anybody who would think that man is a genius? Jeff, if you told me, hey, I know this great guy, he's got a great diet. I go, okay, great. Tell me about the diet. And he tells me, and you say, well, it involves parasitic worms. You just swallow them. I'm going to look at you like you're out of your mind, and I'm not going to talk to this dude. Like, I don't want no diet that involves me eating parasitic worms. That is what Democrats look like trying to talk to Republicans. And we want to find common ground. That ground over there ain't safe. We got to stop coddling our Democratic elected officials. If the word bipartisan comes out of their mouth, stop them. I don't want to hear bipartisan. We got Republican and we got Republican light. I don't want to hear any more about bipartisan. I don't. What are you doing over here? Where's the coalition building on this side? Instead of let's reach out. How you gonna reach out with nothing? You cannot fool racist Republicans by being less racist. Like, I'm 50% racist. It doesn't work. It does not work. And these people only understand two ideas: tax cuts and deregulation. Whereas on this side, we have blue dog conservative Democrats. We got far out leftist weed smoking progressives and everything in between. We have men and women. We have gays and theys. We have trans. We have non-binary. We have older. We have younger. We have Vietnam vets and Afghanistan vets on this side of the political aisle, and yet every time they keep reaching out to these same damn people. Why? I'm not just disappointed. I'm angry. I am 53 years old, and I will never see America really get it right in my lifetime. I gave my body up to protect the rights of people to tell me that the most qualified candidate we've ever had wasn't as good as the failed businessman. The failed 6 times bankrupt, three-time baby daddy, cheating, lying, backstabbing, narcissistic human being. But the black woman was just a bridge too far. Jeff, I will be 54 in December. I'm never going to see this. I'm never going to see America ever reach up to those words. And quite frankly, I'm tired of us pussyfooting around like, there's a 50-ton elephant in the room. The whole room gray. But don't nobody want to say nothing. We just want to talk about how incredible gray that the walls are. Our Democratic leaders have to be afraid of us more than they're afraid of losing donor money. And until such time as we all demand that, until such time as we demand that, we're never going to fix this. I got kids and grandkids, man. We ain't fixing it. I don't do doom and gloom because I don't come from doom and gloom. I am the product of a single black woman. The most famous words my mother ever said was when a woman tried to attack me. She gave us 4 words. Stand right there, bitch. My mother was gonna handle it. I don't know who this bipartisan. I don't know who these people are, and I'm hurt. I'm tired. I'm broken. I'm sick of this, and I can't. I can't keep playing this like this, man. I can't. I'm physically and mentally broken, and I'm not about to sit here and just wait till 2026 and hope the Democrats take back the House and the Senate. No, I'm a demand of them. What are you gonna do when you get there? You get the gavel. What are you gonna do? Reach out? Because if you're gonna reach out, move. Get out of the way. You can leave now. Go sit down, retire, whatever it is that you're gonna do. But get out of the way. I don't like Fetterman. I'm willing to move into your house, Jeff, just to make sure that man doesn't win again. I will move into your basement and eat bologna sandwiches just to make sure John Fetterman does not cash another senatorial check in my life. I don't like Chuck Schumer very much right now. Now here. And then when you have built this platform with all of these diverse voices, you can offer the American people something different.
Great to be on in that. I'm tired too. I am in, and I want to go directly to your tired too. I am in, and I want to go directly to your question, Jeff. As Bernie likely has ever been, is your Republicans that completely desecrate our democratic structures to try. You're not going to see a Mitt Romney try to overthrow an election, and he didn't when he lost to President Obama in 2012. So to go to your question, Jeff, I actually agree with Thomas. I think the time for trying to work with your Senator Tuberville, it is already an abs time.
Right.
And I don't know. And it is just a complete fit of, we are currently led by Philadelphia dominant heavy lead AOC. I'm not saying that these scares. I'm not saying that these scares.
Weren't they just in one of them?
It was Nebraska.
Weren't they just in one of them?
It was Nebraska. I think, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
You have struck something. I think, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
You have struck something, and build us going forward. We're seeing the results of that now. So it's going to be a really interesting time. It really is going to be a really interesting time. It really is. And the Democratic Party people keep saying we're at a self-reflection point. We need to trying to convince me, believe we're at this place where we're at this place where Canada hates us. Where Canada hates us.
Yeah, no, I was gonna not just.
Yes, you were saying it. The church stand up and needs to come.
A lot of that, but that's what allies. And we work together. Maybe you have onions, maybe I have tomatoes, but if we pull it together, we can make something. I know from the black community perspective, I heard my grandmother and great-grandmother talk about how families pulled together because there was no food and there was bread lines and it was poor. My people, we are no stranger to poverty. We are no stranger to adversity. And I think that as bad as it's going to get, and I believe it's going to get bad, the church it is going to be called upon, and it is our responsibility to step up and say, we don't have all the answers, but we have the answer that matters. We have Christ, and he makes a difference. We have love, and with love we can overcome things. We do have to work together. I think the church is waxed cold. I think they've become indifferent. I don't mean to preach, fellas, but I mean, I am the girl in the group, and I've had little to say. But
I think the other thing, Pastor Clinton, you also have to acknowledge is I do believe the church has traded in its stewardship of God being loved to power.
Absolutely.
The idea, power is alluring, and I've always said there are only two forces on the face of the earth that have been almost diametrically running neck and neck, and that's religion and politics. The more power in one, the less of a calling you have in the other. If you're a politician and you become, you take on more of the idea of being that light in the world as Jesus commanded, your politics change. But by the same token, if you are a religious leader and you have the ear of the president, the vice president, the Supreme Court, that's power. I can't call up John Roberts, but if, let's say, I don't know, TD Jakes wanted to, he could. Politics and religion have ran almost neck and neck, and when they bleed over, something gets lost. And unfortunately, in 2025, we have the church thinking that, taking care of the less of us is less important than making sure trans people don't pee in the wrong bathroom, or women don't do something with their own bodies. So it's weird.
It has become strange and cold.
I would just add that the church is at its best when it is with those on the margins, because that's what Jesus did. And so when it's the most Christ-like, that's also when it's poking. That's when it's there's a quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's essentially somebody had asked, gosh, it looks like the church has gone astray. How do I know when I'm with the true church? And the response was, follow the poor, be where they go. That's where the church is.
Well, that's where it should be.
7:07. I'm late to reset and get into what I promised you was an announcement. I will get to that as well. For whatever it's worth, I got a box of tissues here ready on the ready. 7:07 Eastern Daylight Time. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 23rd of March, 2025. We are live right now on the Facebook pages of Hot101.net, the TCP Media Group, Ghost Claw Productions, and Our Revolution Pennsylvania. We have shared the program to well over 100 different groups and so on across the Facebook universe, to every single group and individual who has allowed us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. Thank you very much. We could not do it without your help. And you can stay right where you are, wherever you might be watching in any of those groups. If you would like to come over to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, your comments, your questions are not only welcome, they are invited. We may or may not get to phone calls later on in the program. We may or may not return to the political part of the discussion. We're going to get into something completely different here after the show reset. That Other Side of Information, of course, is our home group Facebook page for all things that surround our program, and we are live there right now as well. That Other Side of Information is also the name of our YouTube channel. We're live there right now. We are also live on the YouTube channel of course, Ghost Claw Productions Radio, because this ego demands two YouTube channels. Darn it, one is just simply not enough. The audio of the program blasts around the globe via two global internet radio stations, one Hot101.net. Our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere below, on, or above Earth with any type of device, desktops, laptops, phones, tablets, you can Bluetooth to earbuds, earphones, headphones, Bluetooth it in the car, Bluetooth it in the shower, wherever you want to. You can Bluetooth it and listen completely for free. You don't need the website to listen, however. You can use the Apple App Store app for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn radio app for all other types of devices. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. GCPR Live, Ghost Claw Productions Radio.live, GCPR.live, our website. You can go right there as well and listen for free. You can also download the fully functional Android app. If you have an Android device, you can download the GCPR app and listen for free. Our website, of course, tells you everything that you ever wanted to know about our station and more. Read up about our hosts, including Thomas, Pastor Clinton, and Pastor Best, and soon Cole. You can read about all these folks, and George at the help desk, and how many other programs? I can't even count them all. But you can, the man is prolific, let's just be honest. You can read all about it at our website, gcpr.live. Find out about all our hosts, all our shows. Drop us an email. Talk to us about the station. Everything that you ever wanted to know and more. gcpr.live. Now, following us immediately at hot101.net, the music returns on gcpr.live, The Villain's View from 9 p.m. Conversations with T. Nathan from 11, and Thomas kicks off your broadcast work week tomorrow morning with a fresh, steaming pot of the sound of coffee. It sounds so odd every time I say it, but I'm a teenager and I'm highly immature. That's why I say it, because it sounds silly and it makes me giggle. So I continue to say it every time. He kicks off your work week tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. with the sound of coffee. All of that right here on gcpr.live. For us here at the Kennedy Effect and TKE tonight, Cole takes over the ship as captain starting Tuesday from 8 p.m. Our show is brought to you, of course, by Smooth, CA Online, Smooth, California. Creating a healthy skincare lifestyle, Smooth California is a family-owned skincare formula whose main purpose is to promote a healthy skincare lifestyle. Smooth California is a healthy alternative to commercial products filled with chemicals and man-made additives that not only do damage to your skin, but to your entire body as well. Smooth California products are tallow-based and made with 100% natural ingredients that means none, zero, without preservatives and additives. Smooth California. Check it out and try it. Proud and humbled to have them as a sponsor of our program. SmoothCA.online. SMOOTHCA.online. You're listening to and watching, hopefully, the Kennedy Effect for the 23rd, although you might be doing better if you're only listening, for the 23rd of March 2025. I've had a few folks tell me in the chat that the video's freezing occasionally. I am pushing a ton of bandwidth through this, and yes, George, I am physically connected to the Ethernet, so do not yell at me that I'm doing it on Wi-Fi. I am not, but I am still pushing a ton of bandwidth through this computer, and apparently we're freezing a little bit on your end. Happy viewers, hang in there. I'm actually going through the house trying to shut down some other devices that are using the bandwidth, so that hopefully we will remain smooth through the remainder of the program. Again, we take you up to 9 o'clock. The music returns on Hot 101. Following us, The Villain's View on gcpr.live. I want to get into what I wanted to tell you about my radio family. Not just those that I broadcast with, but with all of you that listen at home. I've been alluding to this for a month at least, because it's when I found out. And so here we go. So why is Cole taking over the program? Why is this such a special program, or I think it's a special program tonight, perhaps more so than what we do on a daily basis? And it's really two big reasons. On Tuesday, I will be undergoing surgery to remove a cancerous tumor off of my pancreas. And my spleen will in all likelihood be removed as well. I've also learned that within the last 6 months or so, the kidney function has been cut in half. I am now at stage 3 kidney failure with about 48% of it remaining. And for the geeks in the audience, because you can hear running behind me are the sounds of the starship from Star Trek, and we always make lots of Star Trek references on this show. I'm at orange alert. There is no orange alert in Star Trek. It's either yellow alert or red alert. I'm not at red alert yet. I'm past yellow. So we're at an orange alert on my kidneys. I'm 55 and a half years old. I'm 20 years younger than when we lost my father 8 years ago. He had pancreatic cancer. Now I do. He smoked like a champion. The U.S. military taught him how to smoke when he was 16 years old. And apparently, I've been told it is a different type of cancer, one that chemotherapy is completely useless against. In a way, that's good. I happen to fancy what hair I have left. But it also means that if it can't all get cut out, we know what that means. We'll get into that. If I just do the math, if I try to treat this as a math problem, I had roughly 93% of my kidney function in mid-September of 2024. I now have 48%. So in a matter of 6 months, I lost half of it. So if we extrapolate that out, by the end of summer, I will be either on dialysis, need a transplant, or I'll be gone. Now, I've always fancied myself as somebody who's pretty logical. That I can kind of, when necessary, be a bit dispassionate. And just kind of say, well, it is what it is. And try to take a bit of a business-like approach to things when you can make the argument that emotion should be removed or needs to be removed. And occasion you do have to make decisions based on the numbers, kind of, so to speak. And I'd like to think, and you as an audience have been with me as I've talked about how, no pun intended, I've been blessed enough to rediscover a faith-based life. A new church home at Central Moravian here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We got married there. I've been lucky enough to get married again. Never thought that was going to happen. And I always thought that I was ready for this. What I've discovered is that I might not be. And that for as much as my faith informs me that this existence is merely one form before the next, it's still pretty sobering to think this might be the last fill in the blank. Or to look at a calendar, and do that math and think, wow, by September, could be it. And I asked my partner Thomas to be here because he's my partner. He's my 50-50 equal partner at GCPR. By his insistence. He could have easily started this and done all of this without me. And arguably it would have been much more successful. But we do this together. And for those of you who think that you can't forge real friendships and real connections over this kind of amazing thing that we call the internet, Thomas and I have never been in the same room together. He was planning to come to the wedding, but had to change plans. Perfectly understandably, by the way. He should have. He was right to change plans. We've never been in the same room. Thomas is my brother. He's family to me. So for those of you who think you can't forge these relationships, you're wrong.
You know why we started GCPR together? I remember remember telling Jeff, I said, because Jeff had been on Hot 101 for 5 years. And I had been making TikTok videos for a little over 6 months. And I was crazy. He invited me on to this show. And I went 3 hours. Best time of my life. He asked me to come back. I did. And I remember one day, me, Jeff, and George were sitting around talking. I said, Jeff, what would you think about having your own radio station? Well, I can't do it. We had to talk him into it. We had to talk him into it, me and George. But I told him, I said, there's no reason you're not known by everyone. I said, you have one of the strongest liberal progressive voices I've ever met. So basically, GCPR was supposed to be a vehicle for him. I just got to do the day-to-day operation. But this was supposed to be Jeff's show. The reason I wanted Jeff as my partner, not 49, 52 or anything like that, is because I wanted to be a part of something with him. Jeff is the better half of this little ragtag. He is our head of news. He always has been. We had to give him a title, so I said, okay, here's the title. Head of our news division, Jeff Kennedy. I have stood next to this man for about going on 4 years. And what Jeff won't say, but I will, is this. He is, without question, the best news progressive voice in America today. I don't say that to blow his head up. I've told him this before. Phone conversations we have had, I have told him. GCPR was his view. I was just going to make sure he got a chance to do it. We started off, we had 2 shows. 2. This one and the Villains.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yep.
That was it. And I told him, if you take a chance with me, take a chance with me. We have picked up the bill for Bosscast, we picked up the bill for Streamlabs, we picked up the bill for all of it. When Jeff said, hey, let's have this person, I'd meet him. Go, yep. But I didn't even have to meet him. There's not one person that is on this radio station that Jeff has brought in that I ever had to meet because I know him. I know his quality. I know his character. That means if he brings somebody onto this station, they have the same quality he does. So, as his partner and his brother, I will say this. There will always be a home. You will recover. You're going to come back stronger than ever. And I am going to do for you what I said I was going to do in the first. I'm going to make you the biggest name in news. And I don't give a shit I have to do. I don't care. Because you have, without question, changed my life. You are my friend. You are my brother. You are my partner. The mastheads stays the same. Go on. Jeff Kennedy. Go on. Thomas McCormick. I don't mind standing in your shadow, my friend. I don't. I'm good at it. But this will be your home from now on. I'm not telling you, oh, I hope you make it. No. You will come back. And we have had this conversation off air about what happens if the day ever comes where one of the 2 of us isn't here. And if that ever happens, if that ever happens, that spot will remain yours. What a lot of you guys on the station don't know is Ghost Claw Productions Radio, Ghost Claw Productions LLC, was started by my mother, who passed away. My sister paid for my mother's headstone. There was a little bit of money left over. We tried to give it to my two little sisters. They didn't want it. My sister gave it to me and my brother. That is what I paid for the LLC with. My mother was the first investor in this station. Jeff, you are always going to be a co-owner. Whether you are here or you're here in spirit. You are my partner, my friend, and my brother. And as long as this station exists, Jeff Kennedy's name will be a part of it. Don't you ever think of it. This is your family. Like I told you before, I'm gonna make you famous, no matter what I gotta do.
I'd be incredibly famous if I died on the air. The problem with that trick is I can only do it once.
Okay,
that's the problem. I
saw that cartoon as a kid.
I can only do it once.
Exactly. I saw that Daffy Duck cartoon.
It'll work, but
of course it will.
Yeah.
But nobody is going to sit in your chair. No. And I always told you, if something ever happened to me, I'd want the same thing.
And bad news for the fans and listenership of the Villain's View. I'm gonna stick around. I have to close this Zoom and then I have to join Thomas's, and I'm gonna say hello to everybody at the Villain's View after 9 o'clock. So bad news for the Villain's View.
Yeah, he's gonna hear the
super low ratings for the first hour.
Oh please, thought it would add. But Jeff, you are part of this family. Cole, Jeff chose you for a reason. I trust him, so I trust you. You will steward the ship until he comes back. But he will be back, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen.
Do not, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, think this is the last time you're going to hear Kennedy Effect on this station, on Hot 101. Jeff will come back. And like I told you before, you just got to believe it, buddy. I done already said it. You'll be back.
Yeah. So, pastors, this is kind of why you've been very patient through the first hour. I know it's not when there's a lot of folks in the room, there's, a lot of time in between to step up to the mic. But the reason I wanted to transition into out of politics was my faith tells me that, again, this is just one form that we take along this journey, and that I will, whether that's Tuesday or some point while I'm in the hospital or 6 months from now or whatever it is, that this is simply a stop along the way, and that when this form ends, I will hopefully see all those that I've lost before me, most of which my father. But yet, as faithful as people can be, we also are terribly afraid of this transition. And I'm wondering, whoever wants to jump up first, because again, you've all been extremely patient. It's hard for mic time when there's so many folks here. I'm blessed by the attendance tonight. I wasn't expecting everybody. I knew the door's always open to everybody, but it doesn't always happen. So Why is it that you think that we? Well, if it's not oversimplistic, what would be the? How do you explain the Cliff's Notes version, which sounds so terrible for me to even say, but of what happens next when someone, whether it's a parishioner or just someone that you meet at a coffee shop, says, what do you believe? What happens to us? What happens next? What happens to me? Do I close my eyes and everything goes black and that's the end of it? Or is it the, proverbial light at the end of the tunnel? And what do you tell people? What do you say to them? What do you tell them when they because we do fear this. We fear it because we don't know. What do you tell people when they say, I know I'm coming to the end and I'm scared? What's going to happen to me?
I'd like to address that. Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I go, there you may be also. And we know that the Bible also says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I believe, first off, I don't believe that this is it. I think that we're in for a little bit of a fight, but I know that you're going to pull through because I don't think God's finished here. So we fight. But when our time comes, for instance, when my time comes, I believe that when I close my eyes, I'll lift up my eyes again in heaven. I believe that I'm going to be with Christ. I'm going to be with our Lord. But there's many versions of it. Some people say that we sleep and then we're resurrected. But then some people believe that we won't all sleep, that some of us are going to be caught up in the rapture. There's many versions of it, but I believe and I stand by what the Word of God says: to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And that when I close my eyes, because we're body, soul, and spirit, that my spirit will go to be with Him, and we will see loved ones again. And we will, but more importantly, we're going to be in His presence. We're going to be with God. And I witnessed the Lord do some very miraculous things. And I've seen it in my lifetime for people who were sick, who had no hope, that God just turned it all around and just made it straight. Just made it I don't know. He leaves no doubt that it's Him. And I have no reason to believe that, even though, they're saying that you can't have chemo. In one way, I'm kind of glad, because chemo's rough. Chemo does a lot of damage. And it just can't. But the prayer is that they get it all in one shot. And and we have to believe in miracles. We have to have hope, and we have to have faith. Now, it is appointed unto man once to die, and when we close our eyes and we know that God calls us home, He's calling us to Him as believers. But in the presence of sickness, I believe that we fight until He says enough. You fought a good fight, you finished the course, you've kept the faith. But I believe that I believe there's hope. My prayer is that you come through to this surgery, they get it all, and we're on to the next topic. But if that doesn't happen, I believe that you will close your eyes and open it up again and be in His presence. That's what I believe. And I stand by the Word of God. How about you, Pastor? What do you say?
Jeff, 8 years ago, I was on the operating table for open heart surgery, and a week later for an obstructed bowel that they had to do extensive surgery for. Both times on that table, as I was wheeled in, I prayed the prayer of Christ: into your hands, O God, I commend my spirit. And with that, I found a deep peace that I experienced on that operating table. And I trusted that whatever happened, I was in God's loving care. And if you go into that process fully giving yourself, even if there are moments of doubt, yes, I had mine, even if there are moments of doubt in there, that's just part of the questioning of that we do as human beings. It's not the absence of faith, it is the desire for a greater certainty about things. And so doubt can lead to deeper faith. I will tell you that after both surgeries, my sense of gratitude and joy for life was unparalleled. I had never experienced it before. And the first time I went back into the pulpit after recovering, this was now 3 months after that, I was so full of joy that I just openly wept. And it was, they weren't tears of sorrow or they were just tears of joy. And I shared that with the congregation, and they celebrated that with me. If you have faith when you go into this surgical process and just commend yourself into God's care, you will find peace. And that's my prayer for you as you go into this, is to find the peace that whether you awaken or not, and whether all the other issues that you're challenged and faced with, the recovery and then the kidney issues, carry your faith and let the faith be fully given over to God, and ask for the deep peace that passes all understanding, because that'll be there. I believe that. I certainly experienced it in my life.
Pastor Best, again, faith, especially for Christians, I'm not in any way, shape, or form going to try to speak for the other faiths and religions that I simply am unqualified to do. But let's faith informs me that everything that Pastor Clinton and that Kevin just said is true. And for practicing Christians especially, we all accept that as true. So then why are we so afraid? Why is the prospect of the end, if you will, of death, why does that scare us so much?
I think very simply is because while we have an aspirational belief of life, death, and resurrection, it's easy to talk about, we have trouble actually embracing that because death feels final. Something is ending, and we can't see the other side. And so, right, this goes back, this is just humanity. We have two major addictions as humans. It's knowing and being in control. And so for me, when I think about this, I think about, what is the role of death? What purpose does it serve? In a sense, death kind of gets into our face. I mean, this is what for Christians, we just celebrated Ash Wednesday a couple of weeks ago, and so what are we doing? We're taking burnt palms mixed with some oil. We're literally putting them on people's forehead in the sign of a cross and telling them, remember, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. It's a true statement. Death is literally getting in our face. And the purpose of death getting in our face is to remind us we are not in control. That's the biggest fear I think that humans have. Because if we're not in control, we don't know. And I mean, you can go back theologically if you take a look at like Genesis 3, the story of the fall. It's not about sexuality and sex and all that type of stuff. I mean, the story in Genesis 3 is ultimately the serpent says, hey, if you do this, you'll be like God. And what is that? Well, you'll know and you'll be in control. So I think, you know, and kind of like Pastor Frederick, I've had, I guess you could say, encounters with death on a personal level as well, and it wasn't time. I remember as a 14-year-old having this severe pain in my abdomen area, being in the hospital for 11 days, bleeding, pain that I've never experienced in my life, and just wanting it to end. And it was not time. And so, but at the same time, something did end. And it was kind of this innocence of youth ended. And what comes about is a resurrection, a new life that comes in its place. Every time that we experience something in our life, a major change, it is a life, death, and resurrection. Something ends. In order to get to resurrection, there has to be death. This is where I know as a pastor, my favorite week is Holy Week. Going to come next month, right? Starts with Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, the services on Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, the Easter Vigil, and then Easter Sunday, and it's always, I don't know, so. For me, that's the very much a richness of the faith, and those midweek services are so very important, because without that, what is Easter? Like, we go from the triumphant entry into Jerusalem, and it's like, yay, wonderful, and then we're going to have the resurrection, and it's like, well, where do we go through the valley of the shadow of death to actually be able to appreciate those things? So, Jeff, what I would ask, and I've done this with people as well, is, and you don't have to answer this obviously on the internet, is, what are you afraid of when it comes to death? I mean, because that's really what it comes to, is name those things for yourself. What is it that you're afraid of? Name it, give it voice. And then, okay, why am I afraid of this? What is it about this that is causing me fear? And what is it that I have been promised? What is it that that I know about those that love me in relation to this? What is it that God has said? What is it that I have seen examples of? I mean, I've used this example too with the idea of, I mean, this isn't just individual lives, right? This is the same thing that happens with congregations, right? We have a serious situation of congregations in major decline and closures. And one of the biggest challenges that happens with that is because these congregations, while claiming to believe life, death, and resurrection, when it comes down to it, they haven't bought it because they're not willing to live into it. And so they're afraid. They're afraid that death is the end. So I will say, regardless of what happens after surgery, Jeff, that surgery means something is cut out of you. Something has died. Something has died. It doesn't mean that everything is over, but something has died. And it's not just a physical piece of your body that has been removed. Something else. Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's an emotion. Maybe it's a relationship with something. And so then it's a matter of, that's when resurrection takes place, is only after death. But that is extremely scary. I mean, you can think of all this. I think of the story in Scripture about in the New Testament of Jesus takes his time to go to Lazarus, who dies. And it's 4 days. And that's on purpose, because then he's really dead. in the simplistic way of explaining it.
Right.
And he goes, and Mary and Martha, they're going through the ritualistic ways of mourning, which is really healthy. I wish we would adopt some of these things. But the biggest thing is he goes, and it's, the shortest verse in Scripture of the New Testament is he weeps. Right? He knows what he's going to do in that story. We know what he's going to do in that story. He knows what he's going to do, and yet he's weeping because resurrection is not a rewind. It has to go through death, and death is painful because something has ended. What was is no more. And so what I would ask you again is, what are you afraid of? What is it that is not going to be anymore? That's, if you can name those things and just kind of contemplate and sit with those things and say, okay, what is this about this? That's where I think you can start to have some peace with this. Does that make sense, Jeff?
It does, and this is going to look like the biggest question dodging ever on this program, but I want to welcome Rabbi Mark Klein, a new friend of the show, brand new. In fact, it was Pastor Bess that was kind enough to give me Rabbi Klein's contact, and I made a genuine effort to get all of the three major Abrahamic religions represented here. 2 for 3 will get you in the Hall of Fame, so I'll take it. If you can hit 1 out of 3, you'll get the Hall of Fame, but I got 2 for 3. Disappointed I didn't go a 3 for 3, but Rabbi Klein, I want to say welcome to the program. Welcome to the Kennedy Effect. It's so nice to have a new face. We love the reoccurring faces. We love the family we've built here, but it's always nice to welcome a new face to the program.
Thank you.
It is very kind of you to be here because I know that you had a prior engagement and you had talked about how you were going to rush home, which I hope you did not. I hope you took some time, enjoyed, and very nice of you to come from us from such a gorgeous island. I very much enjoyed it. I think I'd rather be where you are.
Well, I wish I was there, and I will be in 3 months. We're moving to Key West.
Oh my, nice.
Yeah, I actually just left the mosque. The Ahmadiyyan Muslim tradition recognizes today as the Promised Messiah Day. They accept a messianic figure that the rest of the Muslim world does not. So I was there celebrating with Muslims. And so the Imam would have loved to join me on this, but he's still there. So yeah, I did just kind of run right from there. The good news, it's only 8 blocks.
Well, I perfectly understand, that's for sure. The reason why got in just after I kind of explained everything, but and I don't know if Pastor Best had the opportunity to explain it all to you before. The reason why I wanted to invite everybody here tonight is this is going to be my last live program for a while. I have cancer, my kidneys are shutting down, and I wanted to kind of take a moment, or a program, more than a moment, a program to kind of dig deeper into the ideas and the fears of what happens to us. What do we become? As a Christian, I understand that my faith, while rooted in yours, is at the same time different. What does Judaism tell us about the next phase? What happens to us when this incarnation is done, or if I'm even explaining it right at all, or am I completely... I'm certainly no expert in Judaism by any means.
I'm not sure that, as a rabbi, I'm an expert. There's, and I don't mean to be light, but there is a saying in our tradition that if you have 5 Jews, you have 32 opinions. And it's pretty true. Judaism is not a religion. It's a faith tradition that has religious aspects to it. Okay? In fact, Maimonides 800 years ago said that saying what God is blasphemy, because with my human limitations, it's arrogance that would allow me to start defining God in human language. And so, that said, Jeff, your question, first, my prayers and heart are with you. And this is very, very timely for me. Yesterday was the 17th anniversary of my first wife's death, and her father died yesterday. And so I've always believed that we don't wait to die, we live until we die. When someone tells me that they have a terminal illness or they're dying of something, I say, no, you're not, you're living with it, and you'll die when you die. The afterlife, I honestly can't tell you. There's, and I don't know that any of us can say with definity that what happens afterwards. Faith tells us that there's something beyond our corporeal existence. Matthew, I really appreciated what you were saying, that death and resurrection is something that we experience on a regular basis, whether it's losing a piece of our body or a relationship that challenges or changes, or all of the places in life. And that is a very Jewish concept. And so I don't know for sure what's going to happen to me afterwards, but I can tell you that everybody that my world has touched while I'm here, my prayer is that I leave them in a better place than they were before we interacted. And so in Judaism, heaven and hell really is what we leave to the next generation, to the people after us. Either the hell they have to crawl out of, or the better world that we left them that they get to continue to build on. But it is courageous conversations like the one that you're having right now while you're facing the unknown, that help us all reframe our thoughts from the ugly that fills the news. We get so caught up in our stuff and very myopically, each of us to my stuff, me, that we lose sight of what really is sacred. And what I can tell you is when my first wife died and I stood over her grave, I had to make a choice. And I could grieve that I was 48 and I had children, the youngest of whom was 8 years old, and all of the things that I didn't get. Or I could be thankful for every day that I had that no one guaranteed me one of. And the moment that I realized that, there was no turning back. And so if you get to know me, you'll hear me say every day, I'm blessed every day. Because like I said, no one guarantees us a day of living, a day of relationships, a day of health, and everything that we have, even as we face the valley of the shadows, per Psalm 23, we're blessed to be here. And that you want to gather people and welcome new friends, that's a gift that I can't even begin to define.
So what is, I know that, Pastor Best talked a bit about what it is that we fear. Why do you think we fear death then as much as we do? Especially, maybe, I may be saying this unfairly, but especially folks of faith, especially people who live a faith-based life. I'm far from perfect, God knows. God knows, no pun intended. But far from perfect, like can barely spell it. But my faith tells me that this is, as I had mentioned before you got here, I'm being a bit repetitive for the audience here, but that there is something after that I have no reason to fear, and yet I do. Why do you suppose people of faith, if we have accepted all of this to be true, why do we still fear? Why do we fight so hard? Why, to almost drift back into the political, I'm going from memory now. I want to say that it's somewhere in the area of 2/3 to 3/4 of all medical dollars are spent within the last 5 years of life to extend life. Why do we fear as much as we do?
I think if we're honest, having faced a situation myself with cancer, they found a lump and all that, and I had to go through all of the tests. The one thing that I feared was the life that I had yet still to live. You know, leaving my children or leaving my loved ones or leaving someone that I loved, or, you know, it's a lot. It's the fear of losing, and it is the fear of loss, and it's the fear of, you know, not finishing what I had yet to do. At least that's how I felt. And it is a very scary thing to feel like you haven't fulfilled your purpose or you're leaving people behind. It's an emotional feeling. It's real.
I would attempt to answer Pastor Beston to say that I guess part of what I fear is very selfishly based. I don't want to miss these things. Humans across the planet die every single second of every single day. There's just shy of 8 billion of us, and every second of every day someone is crossing over. And the planet continues to spin, and the moon continues to orbit the planet, and the planet continues to orbit the sun. And you can take that all the way down to the Milky Way galaxy continues to speed toward the Andromeda galaxy on an eventual collision about 4 billion years from now. All of that said, I do fear, if fear is even the right word, what I'm going to miss.
Yeah, you just hit it when you said if fear is the right word. Fear is the opposite of faith, to be honest with you.
Amen.
Longing for more, I think, is not fear. Desiring to be able to share more time, to have more experiences, to love more and to be loved more, I don't think that's a matter of fear. I think, if anything, that speaks to the value you hold in living.
That's right.
So I would, and thank you, Pastor. I would recharacterize it, because I don't think what you're talking about is fear. I think that this is a testament to how much you cherish living. And none of us want to let go of blessings.
Do you think that's why we fight it so hard? Even if our quality of life, to borrow a term, has deteriorated to such a point, but yet we spend and we fight, and the medicines and the machines and instead, I mean, a precious few of us, I think, have the strength to say, okay, time to just let things run their course. Western Europe, especially, it's the Netherlands, I think it is, that has the assisted suicide law, where folks who are terminal can say, all right, enough, and I'm going to stop this now, and I'm going to end this now before I deteriorate to such a point. And it's a hell of a process. I've seen a really disturbing yet and terribly enlightening documentary on it about a woman who was terminal, and as soon as she found out she was terminal, she just said, you know what, I'm not doing any of this. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go. I think it was like 1 year that she just sort of, I don't want to say went crazy, but spent some of the savings, did a bit of travel, ate at restaurants she always wanted to eat at, and was surrounded by family, but made a decision that I'm going to end this as Dutch law allows. She, of course, had to go through a psychiatric screening and a medical screening. Both doctors agreed she is a perfectly sound mind and emotional health. And the physical doctor, medical doctor, if you will, said, no, there's nothing to be done here. And so the Dutch government signed off and said, okay, you can go on your own terms. But the overwhelming majority of us, regardless of faith, seem to fight that eventuality. Is it really just as simple as I never got to see Bruce Springsteen live, I never got to travel to Key West, I never got to see the Eiffel Tower,
Jeff,
I never
I
never tasted quail. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it just as simple as as simple as that?
No, and I think part of this too is you can't separate out our culture as well, right? We have a culture that refuses to acknowledge aging, let alone death, and so we're always in pursuit of trying to deny aging. We're in pursuit. We have a culture. We're like in a pool, and we don't even realize the water that's surrounding us. That's a part of what's going on as well. This kind of resistance, right? Because if it can happen to us, what does that mean to the larger culture? Right? I think in some sense, if you want to dip into the political end of things, part of the challenge that we face as the country right now is we all recognize that something is changing. Something is dying. And I don't know what that is, right? Because then now there's this unknown. There's all this type of stuff. And it's not just the loss of what could have been, but it's also we struggle with the acceptance of the reality, the acceptance of facing this. And so I think there's a cultural element in this as well. It's this multifaceted thing that we face, that oftentimes we're not even aware of all of the other stuff that's hitting on us. So it's not just a compartment that we're dealing with. Faith is not a compartment of one's life, where it shouldn't be. It should be something that's integrative throughout our entire lives, right? And culture ends up doing that, and family and relationships and work and all these type of things that oftentimes very American way of thinking is we have our compartments. That's not how life works, and so it becomes this huge complex spaghetti mess of interweaving things. That's why I don't think there's a nice easy answer either to the question. It's a valid question. It's a wonderful question, and there's not a nice easy.
I want to just synopsize everything you just said, Matthew, and to say, we can be people of faith and live in a very insecure world that determines a lot of how we see the world. And so we can struggle mightily with faith, but the reality is we live in a world where people are very insecure, and fear is how political leaders end up getting political power. And so we are stuck in that mix, in that milieu. I like the messy spaghetti. I've never used that before, but I will. And again, I don't mean to be glib, but I think that's absolutely true. None of us live in a vacuum, and we're stuck with not just our own stuff, but what people impose on us. We can be faithful, and we can say, I've lived a good life, and I've been blessed every day, and everyone around us is saying, but don't go, don't go, don't go. And that has an impact on us. And it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we don't live in a vacuum, which means we're blessed to have everyone. On the other side of the sword, we don't live in a vacuum, which means we're also impacted by everybody.
But then there's also the hope factor. There's also the, we don't know what could happen, so I'm going to fight to stay, because what if something happens? What if there's a cure? What if there's there's always that element, I think, of hope that makes us, and it could be driven by, I'm not ready to leave. It could be driven by a lot of things, or maybe this isn't my time. Maybe this isn't unto death. I think that we can't dismiss hope, and hope does make us want to fight. It does make us want to stay.
Yeah, one other factor, though, I think, when, Jeff, when you were talking about the things we would miss, the things that are central to our lives are our deepest relationships. With our loved ones particularly, but with those that we have impact and we live every day. And for me, when I was on that operating table twice, I thought, do my children know that I love them? Does my wife know that I love her? Yeah, I can rationally say yes, but there are things I wish I would have said. There are, and so you go through that, and that's where the element of fear, I guess, takes on some reality. But as I said before, that okay, God, into your hands I commend my spirit prayer, to say, I trust whatever happens, life will continue to have meaning, not only for me, but for other people who are important to me. And I won't be remembered for being angry. I will be remembered, for other things as well. And so you get to the point where you release those fears, because they limit the impact of love that you have for those relationships and for life itself. And fear distracts from that. Fear is an agent of death. It is not an agent of life and hope.
Let me do our final reset of the program. It's 8:08, I think. No, 8:06. I can't see anything. I have glasses on and I still can't see anything. 8:06. We're going to try that again. 8:06 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 23rd of March, 2025. We are live on the Facebook pages of the TCP Media Group, Our Revolution Pennsylvania, Ghost Claw Productions, and of course our home group, hot101.net, and of course our home group Facebook page for all things that surround our program, That Other Side of Information. You can watch us live all those places right now, in addition to the over 100 other places we have shared the program across the Facebook universe this evening. To everyone who allows us to be a part of your corner of the Facebook universe, we thank you, and we thank you immensely. We could not do it without you. Stay where you are. Continue to watch. If you would like to comment, ask a question, be part of the program that way. I do not know that we're going to get to calls tonight. I will try. If we don't, please use the chat feature on YouTube or Facebook. I will see your comments and questions. I will ask them. You have my word. I will do that. We are live right now on 2 YouTube channels, That Other Side of Information, our original YouTube channel, and of course Ghost Claw Productions Radio, the YouTube home for GCPR.live. 2 radio stations as well, of course, hot101.net. Use our website, Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for the Android devices, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. GCPR Live is our website. Everything you ever wanted to know about us and more at gcpr.live. And remember, both stations can be listened to 100% for free. GCPR has an Android app with an Apple app on the way, under construction, so to speak. As we say, everything you ever wanted to know. GCPR.live, Ghost Claw Productions Radio.live. Plug us into any type of search engine. I continue to recommend DuckDuckGo because they don't trace your search history. They don't record it and keep it and use it to market things to you. DuckDuckGo, GCPR.live. Following us at hot101.net, the music returns to you on gcpr.live. The Villain's View from 9 p.m. Conversations with T. Nathan from 11. Thomas kicks off your broadcast work week. Tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. I will be listening in and commenting there as I work here from home. We at the Kennedy Effect will return to you on Tuesday at 8 p.m. except the Honorable Cole Goodman, the High Honorable Cole Goodman. He watches PMQs. He's going to know what I mean when I say the Right Honorable Cole Goodman. Will be your captain of the ship until and or if I'm able to return to you. We're having a pretty heady darn discussion this evening. We've had many guests, a very busy room. Thomas had to leave us because he has to get ready, obviously, for the Villain's View. Cole Goodman, who's going to be your new host, is still in the room. Very pleased to welcome a new face, Rabbi Mark Klein. Pastor Frederick, Pastor Clinton, Pastor Bester still here, and of course, George still in the room. So let me continue. We're going to take you right till 9. It looks like we're going to make it. If I can stop coughing. I seem to have a cough tonight. I seem to be developing all these lovely little things. One thing I can tell you with this medical thing, folks, don't do WebMD, because no matter what is wrong with you, if you scratch yourself opening a can of something and you go to WebMD, you're going to die. It just, no matter what you do at WebMD, it always somehow means you're going to die, probably within the next 5 minutes. That said, I do know that some of my cancer and kidney issues are manifesting. I have a cough I can't get rid of. I have pain in my kidneys. I'm itchy all the time, like properly, seriously itchy that I can't get rid of. My ankles swell. They're really odd sort of yellow. I don't even know what you would call that shade of yellow. They're an interesting shade of yellow. But don't do WebMD, because you're not dying. I am, but you're not. Stop going to WebMD. You're not dying. It'll convince you that you are. Even if you have hay fever, it'll convince you that you are. I'd like to reopen to the panel again with asking a bit of a selfish question, if I may. And this, of course, I think I already know what the pastors are going to say, which is to put you in a bad spot, my question. But I can't imagine that I'm the only one that has such a question, so I will ask. I'll get mouthy and I'll ask it anyway, because, you know, I talk on the radio and I don't shut up. Kristen and I just got married a few months ago. And I think anyone would ask, why would my fate, why would God's direction for me point me to such a peak, an undeserved peak, only to have it taken away so quickly? What is the, how do those two things square with each other? If it is God's plan for me to find somebody that special and stand in front of God and my church family and my family and say the vows and take the oaths and do all of these things just to have it taken such a short time after, how do you, not just me asking, but I would say anybody, you know, maybe somebody lands that dream job, or they hit the lottery, or I don't know what they get, the house they always wanted, or whatever it might be, and then something goes pear-shaped. How do you explain, or how does faith, how does Scripture, how does your leadership as faith leaders kind of square what I think is a very visceral sort of thing, and maybe sometimes we take it outside of faith?
I'd like to address that. I deal with relationships, and I have a podcast that specializes in relationships, the Christian way. I can say, because I thought a lot about that particular thing, because I was at the wedding, and when I prayed about it, and I was talking to God about it, because I don't know how I would feel if it were, you know what I mean? I would be heartbroken. But then when I began to pray and think about it, what if you were going through all of this and you didn't have the love of your life and you had never met her and you were facing all of this alone? I thought if it were someone that was in my life, if I had 4 years or 4 months or even a year with someone that I found and felt as deeply in love with as I've seen the love between the two of you, it would be worth it. Not to just, I couldn't imagine, I would fight for that 1 year or those months rather than not have it at all. I think the blessing was that you found each other. You couldn't have known that this was going to happen, and neither did she. But yet God still gave you each other, even through this. And you still have that time to be with her, and you found each other. Yes, the answer would have been definitely, we want more time. But the truth of the matter is we don't really know how much time we have. It could be illness, it could be a car accident, that a person can be taken away from us. But I think it's better to have had the love that you have going through this than to be alone with this. I think that the love is precious, and every moment you spend together is worth fighting for, is worth having. And I think that is a gift. That is the gift. And I think if we look at it from that perspective versus, this is just so rotten, and it is rotten, and it is, I think it's, for me, it would be like, oh my God, this is all the time I get, this is awful, but then when I began to really think about if I was going through this and I was totally alone and I didn't have anyone, and I never found the love that I longed for. Never having tasted it, never having, experienced it or had that person beside me, even for a short amount of time. How much more horrible that would be than to have the person that I love right there with me, even for this amount of time.
I would just add in, I totally agree with what Pastor Clinton is saying, and I would just say that when we face a possibility of death, it also makes us far more vulnerable, really quick, and that is gonna you really get to know someone very deep, very quick when that happens. A way that without that would take years potentially. I know, what is it, 2.5 years ago at this point, or 3 years ago, I don't remember, is when I got COVID, and it really it knocked me down hard. I had run a half marathon, and a month later I could barely walk half a block because it was wiped out. It shouldn't happen. And then constant migraine, just lots of things. I've been married to my wife since 2000, so will be 25 years. And it's not just because we've been married for 25 years that I can say, oh, this is like, I'm closer to her now than ever before. It's because of going through some terrible stuff that we have really learned who each other are even more. I'm not grateful for having gone through the stuff, but I'm grateful for the effect of what it has done for my relationship, our relationship to each other. Has made us even closer, and I would never trade that for anything. I wish there was an easier way, but I think this is this weird thing of life, is that when things are easy, all the stuff is there. It's not that any of that has changed, but I don't know if we just don't see it, we don't feel like we need to, any of that type of stuff. But then all of a sudden, when things get hard, like I said, we become vulnerable. Maybe we're open to it finally. And it's open to seeing more in the mirror of ourselves, seeing that in our partner, and really being open to receiving as well. Not just the giving, but also the receiving of love of this other person that we have committed ourselves to. And that is also something that's extremely difficult, I think, for people to just accept that they are loved. We're pretty harsh on ourselves, and yet somebody loves us, not in spite of the flaws, but even with the flaws, because they're also seeing, there's this reciprocal sense of this, that, my wife is not perfect because she's human, and yet I love her so very much. And I think that's a reflection of how God loves us as well. That God doesn't love us because we're perfect. You said it before, far from it. God loves us, and it's not because we've earned it, not because we're perfect, not because of any of that, but because this is the character of who God is. And so when it's this kind of reflecting in through us to others, but also on the receiving end. I remember Mother Teresa had this statement about, she was like, how is it that she was asked, how is it that you're able to, care for all these people and everything? She said, I view myself like a stovepipe, one of the old stovepipes that, curved and everything, kind of downward though. But God sends God's grace and love and all that, and I'm the stovepipe, and I'm receiving all that, and then I'm sending it out to all these other people as well, and they're the stovepipes too, and I'm on the receiving end of this as well.
I assume that all of you at one time or another in your ministries have had to make the bedside visit, if I'm using the right term. I can remember, God knows it's not the same thing. It's a very bad analogy. It's the only one that can come to me. In this limited moment that I seem to be in. Being at the vet's office with any of the myriad of furry family that I've been blessed to have, and by the way, all those furry family given me a hell of a lot more than I've given them, and they are among the they're among the first souls that I hope I am blessed enough to see. I remember the vet saying, you really missed your calling, you should have been a veterinarian. And I thought I could never do what you do, because I couldn't say goodbye. Because I should think that you would lose a little piece of yourself every time you have to say goodbye. Happen to think that one of God's very cruel jokes is that they, our furry family members, should have such shorter lives than we, because they are so pure and innocent and loyal. And I can tell you that the dog we have, the dog I had, all of the cats, they're better people than most of the people I know. How do you if professionally is the right word, how do you professionally get through that? I should think you would lose a piece of yourself each time you have to go through that. How do you go through that and not hurt or not suffer, if that's the right term? I think Kevin is going to jump on that one. I can see him getting ready.
I don't know that you can go through it without suffering, but I'm painfully mindful of the fact that both within the Jewish tradition and within the Christian tradition, suffering is part of life. I mean, it's part of every tradition. And what we hear from God, whether it be through Yahweh or through Jesus Christ, that we do not suffer alone. God accompanies God's people through the wilderness and picks them up and gets irritated with them, and when they're making foolish mistakes, but God remains. And that sense of, I've always felt like, and there have been numerous times over the years when I've been at a bedside of a person that's dying, that how much of a privilege it is to be with that person, and in a few times it's been the last person they saw. And to be grateful that I was able to help them recognize that they are loved as they're going through that time. And so, yeah, it's a sadness, especially for people that I've admired and deeply respected and grown to love over the years. My pastorates, most of them have been very long. And I've never shied away from those moments because of a fear of the pain that I may go through. I think the pain is part of the gift that we suffer with them, but also celebrate the fact that they are not alone in this critical time of their life, and that we are giving them over to a God of love that we trust and look to for direction and guidance.
At the risk of being challenging, I have no idea what God loves, wants, needs. God's never tapped me on the shoulder and said, by the way, Mark, I hate corned beef, whatever the delis tell you. So faith is an intangible. And you believe it so deeply that you're willing to say, I'm going to go to the mat for it. And so the first piece is, as I said with my late wife, no one guaranteed me one day. And so I was blessed for each one I had individually. And so there's no such thing as, I got this great gift and then it was taken from me. I mean, I got this great gift, and I got a second day of great gifts, and a third day of great gifts. And by the way, she did too. And so your partner, your wife, is losing a piece of you. So it's not just that you got to get married and then she was taken from you. You got to get married and you were taken from her potentially. And her feeling is, even had, I have to believe, even had she known what was going on, there's, again, every day was a gift. And one day without the person I love dearly would have been a loss in life. And so we count way too many life occurrences in terms of our perception of blessing and curse. And oftentimes, too often, the curse is we didn't get what we thought we wanted. As opposed to it was really, that negative. We're all going to die at some point. And so when I was in seminary, I spent 3 years as the chaplain for a nursing home. And I really had to every day wrestle exactly with the second piece of your question, is that knowing that walking into a room may be the last time I get to spend time with someone. I learned how to cherish that everyday existence. And especially in a nursing home, when people really become diminished. And there was a lady in Cincinnati where I was in seminary who was the pillar of the Jewish community until dementia set in. And then she lost touch with anything decent. And when I would walk into her room at the nursing home, I would get excuse the expression, I would get my everyday "fuck you, why are you here?" from the pillar of the community. And everyone was just horrifically embarrassed, especially her husband, that's how she would respond to the rabbi. And I had to say, she's responding. The fact is, whatever is going on, she knew that I was in the room, and It's like someone who suffers with Tourette's. They can't control what they say. The fact is they're saying something, and, so it is challenging, and it is a test of faith. And I'll tell you what my rabbi told me the day before I left for seminary. Closed the law office, and we're moving my children and my wife, and he said to me, if you don't ask yourself why you're here every day, you don't belong. And I thought that was the most horrible advice. I've just closed the law office. I'm moving halfway around the world, and that's the best you can do. And I realized very quickly that was absolutely the best advice I've ever gotten. You're either here because you know you make a difference and because you're committed to taking care of yourself and everyone around you, or get out. And I think I speak for everyone here. We know what we're facing. And we know that we're going to come face to face with some of the most horrific things that life could offer. And at the same time, we're going to come face to face with the most incredible blessings that life can offer. And that's why we do what we do.
It would seem to me that faith, if at its deepest, is unselfish. Do unto others as you do to the least among me. Honor thy mother and thy father. Do not covet. And I'm not going to quote to the experts here because I'm just I can make myself look foolish easily enough. I don't have to make an effort at it. But it would seem to me that death is both. It is. I don't want to say unselfish. Unselfish isn't the right word. It's. There's a circle of people affected by it. At the same time, the person who's leaving, I should think it would be quite natural to be angry and selfish and, I'm the one dying here. That kind of... How does... When you have to counsel through that, how do you counsel through that?
It is not easy to face our mortality. It's not easy to face the end of something, especially when you feel like it's just begun. It's just, if any minister or rabbi here is honest, we would have to admit that it is the most difficult, horrific thing you've ever had to face. And yes, you have every right to say why. You have every right to ask God why. Why is it now? Why this? Why that? And you have every right to be angry. Anger is not always a negative emotion. Anger is also healthy. And it has its place. Anger is what makes you fight also, in the face of wanting to give up. So it is also healthy. It is also something that is useful. But I would say that the Lord understands, and He understands your anger. He understands your hurt. Because, when you find something so precious, as spending your life with someone, building a life with someone, you do begin to kind of mourn and be upset about, the possibility of not having this or leaving that person. And you do feel a little guilt. So all of those emotions, there's a barrage of emotions that are felt that is healthy, that is normal. And you have the right to feel those emotions. But you also have the right to understand that even through this, that He loves you. And that His grace is sufficient. And that He's going to be with you. He said, "Lo, I'll be with you always, even until the end of the age." He is never going to leave you nor forsake you. He's going to be right there. Even when we face death, even when we face sickness, even when we face uncertainty, even when we're alone, He's there with us. Our faith tells us that there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And I know that Torah is a little different than the Bible, a lot different, Rabbi. But I can't help believe that faith is the thing that we have to cling to, even in the midst of us being angry and hurt and feeling all of those emotions. You have to know that God is still standing with you, and He's still with you. And we don't know that when you wheel into that surgery, that's it. You don't know that that's it either. My faith tells me that you're coming out of this. My faith tells me that there is hope. And as long as there is hope, there is something worth holding on to. There's something worth believing in, and that's God can heal. I believe that is Jehovah Rapha. I think I sent you that song, Jeff, about it means that God is a healer. I believe that He is a healer. And maybe He doesn't heal in the way we would want Him to. Maybe you come through this and you do have to fight with your kidneys, or maybe you come through this and it stabilizes at 50% or 48%. I don't know. The uncertainty of it is what makes us angry. But our faith says, even in the midst of the darkness, God is the dawn. He is the light. He is our hope, our strength. And that is what we cling to. That is what I want you to know as a pastor, and that is what I want you to know as your friend.
Is that why faith can be so hard sometimes to reaffirm? Because I can't see it, I can't touch it, I can't go to the grocery and buy it, I can't put a stamp on it.
It's not a transaction, Jeff.
Yeah, I can't put a stamp on it and put it in the post. I can't.
Right, it's not a transaction. This is reminding me of one of the first classes I took in seminary was called the Theology of Cancer. Great way to start off.
Really?
Yeah. And
jumping into the deep end there, I should say.
I know, right? And I stuck with it. The first half of the semester, we at that time went through the science of cancer, which is probably now well outdated. And the professor even acknowledged. He said, "Look, we're not even going to spend time in theology. We're going to talk about what we know about the science of cancer. And then we're going to put you in a congregation as a group of 3. Spend time with a congregation that has either someone battling cancer or facing cancer, or they have they've lost people who have had cancer." And it was very informative because that question that you raised about being angry about it is a common question of folks that, because there's got to be a reason of why I have this cancer. The science of cancer says, no, there doesn't.
Right.
There doesn't. Cancer is like a narcissism. It's a cell that was normal that decided to lose all the boundaries and become selfish. It lost the ability to die. A cancer cell on its own could live forever if it had the resources and all that. Unfortunately, a cancer left untreated will end up killing everything around it, which ends up killing the cancer cell. So there's the science. So what we ended up doing, I remember this, is because we had to do a presentation at the church during a worship service. So we actually did like a play. One of the folks was an interviewer, one person was a cancer patient, and one of us dressed up as cancer. And I dressed up as cancer. So I wore a complete black, completely covered, so that I was not, from head to toe, so you couldn't see any features of myself. And I acted like a complete asshole, because that's what cancer is. I mean, I was laying here or there, I would interrupt, I would not answer the questions, I was, dropping things, just completely irreverent. And afterwards, somebody came up to me and said, "I wanted to hit you with a frying pan." I said, "Okay, is that a good thing? Or should I start running?" And they said, "No, you captured it perfectly. That sense of anger, that sense of, part of, I think, the anger is because there is no rhyme or reason for it oftentimes. And we have this idea there has to be a reason, except there isn't. And that's angering. That's a normal, fully normal emotion that God has given us to express that frustration. And I just think, how many times has God been angry with humanity for doing all sorts of crazy junk, right? The other thing that I think of is I think God has been doing the same 5 things through all of Scripture. I don't care if you're talking about the Hebrew Scriptures or the Greek Scriptures. I see you, I hear you, you're not alone, there's hope, let's go.
Yes.
And it's not just the physical act of seeing and hearing you, right? It's getting to that point of tapping into what is that emotion that you're feeling, and whether you're voicing it or not, and what is those longings and all this stuff that we've been talking about, right? Because once you're seen and you're heard, you know you're not alone. And boy, if you know you're not alone, then there is hope. Hope, a definition of hope that I have adopted that I really like, stole it from a colleague, is hope does not sugarcoat reality. It sees reality exactly for what it is. And it says, God has invited us, and maybe even is dragging us on a different way that is better, but it's not our definition of better.
That's right.
And then it's the invitation. God is always inviting. Let's go. And that is scary. So that's what I wanted to share.
Amen.
Jeff, another point on anger. I always have thought, not always, but as I matured in ministry and realized that if someone unloaded on me as a representative of God, that they trusted my relationship enough to be able to do that.
Yep.
And if you unload on God, and just, I've even at times of really struggling with ministry, used profanity against God because I knew God could handle it. And it got that out, and my relationship, I trusted that relationship to be able to handle it. And I think there's a freedom in that, especially if we're ministering to others and saying it is okay to be angry. It shows that you trust God with your anger and that God still is there for you. And, you know, that's that angle on it just helped me to feel better about the private moments of really opening up anger to God, whether it be someone else through me or myself to God. So I offer that.
And Rabbi, you would probably know this better. There's a few Psalms that express some anger at God, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And anger is, you know, I think Pastor Clinton, you said it exactly right. Anger is not a problem. Sometimes it's very healthy and healing. And again, I have no idea what God is, but I think whatever God is, if God can control the universe, God can handle me being upset.
Absolutely.
You know, I live by stories, and I'll bore you with one more. When my late wife was little, her mother tells me that she would get really angry, and she'd storm upstairs, and the door would slam, and then the door would open, and then the door would slam again. And when her parents would go look upstairs, there would be a note on the door: "Dear Mommy, I hate you. Love, Cindy." Now, you, in a very safe space, you can be very angry and know that it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned on this program way too many times before, the opposite of love is not hate; it's apathy.
That's right.
You can't hate something that you didn't love in the first place, because it had to mean something to you for you to be that upset about it that you would hate it. What do you tell folks when they ask you, "Why is God doing this to me?" Why me? Why is
start by
God?
saying, I don't think God does things. I mean, I think we put way too much on God.
That's right.
I agree.
Stuff happens. You know, God wasn't in the hurricane. I think God was in the response that made people leave their homes and travel halfway around the world to help people they didn't know.
Exactly.
So, yeah, stuff happens, and you know, Kevin, to quote you, sometimes I will say shit happens.
Yeah.
The question is, what are we going to do with it?
Right.
Right. Either we fight this or I mean, it depends on how you face things. One of the things that I've learned about anger is that it can be a push also. People think anger is negative, but it's not in every situation. The Bible says be angry but sin not, so angry is allowed. Anger is healthy. And it's okay to be angry. It is. Mm-hmm. I'm angry. You know, you're my friend. Of course I'm upset. But I also know that God is merciful. He's merciful. And I have to believe that, as unfair as this is, because as they said, cancer is like a chaos factor. It just pops up. We don't know when, we don't know how. It just does. And however this has come about, why it's come about, it just did. But we deal with it. And it's okay for us to be angry, but I want you to be angry and fight. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Not to give up. And to hold on to faith, to hold on that God can do this, or even if he doesn't, it's all right. Because I think that
every moment you have with your wife.
That's right.
Every moment.
Embrace every moment with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A gift, and you were a gift to her.
Oh no! God, no! I'm punching well above my weight. Trust me. No. That's the opposite. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm punching well above my weight. We have less than 15 minutes left. I was hoping to get just a, you know, what did I say? 14 times 4. I can't do this in my head. 2-3 minutes from each of you, maybe max, because I do need to like to take the maybe. Get a little selfish, take the last 2-3 minutes myself, but just maybe some final thoughts, or maybe something that, you know, a thought that you didn't get to complete, or something like that, just whatever it might be. And why don't we start I'll be old-fashioned again, ladies first. I'll start with Pastor Clinton. Terribly old-fashioned. Dating myself here is something awful.
What I say to you is that you just have to hold on to God, because he's not going to give up on you. He's not. And he's going to walk with you through this. And just know that you are loved, and you give love and you receive love. Love is your harvest because of what you've sown, what you've given to people. You're loved by many, many people. And your living is not in vain. Your work is not finished. And I believe that God's going to bring you through. That is my hope. That is my prayer.
Oh, internet connection. You went silent on us, Pastor. I hope that's not a sign. Come on, that was funny. I thought it was. Anyway, she's still going, but you went silent on us. Rabbi, some final, since you are new to the program, some final thoughts, if you would be so kind.
I am new, and I'm new in the conversation that was started long before I got on today, but I can tell you that faith sees us into blessing whatever happens. My prayer is that you are whole as you come through this. Certainly. My prayer is also that your health, mental, physical, and emotional, is strong to deal with whatever we face. But my biggest prayer is that you can appreciate every day as a blessing. You now are faced with the potential of not having some more of that extra time, but you weren't guaranteed anything that you have. may you celebrate every breath that you get to take, because they're all gifts.
Pastor Best?
What I often tell people in similar situations is, first of all, is that death doesn't get the final say. That's what faith tells us. Kind of echoing some of the other things that my colleagues have said, you are seen, you are heard by God and by others, which means you're not alone, Jeff, that you're loved, that there is hope, and hope does not disappoint. And I will say that healing is different than cure, right? Healing is something that brings peace. And a lot of the conversation that we've, I'm extremely grateful for you having this conversation. Not great because of why, but to just appreciate the fact that we can have this kind of conversation, which I think is so very important, is the healing conversation. Not just for you, I hope, but for anybody who listens, is that there is healing, and that's what's always promised, is healing. And so I want to leave you with that.
Kevin?
I served the Waldensian Presbyterian Church for 13 years, and it's the motto of the Waldensian people is, a light shines in the darkness. Our faith is a light. The faith that we have in a God of light that surrounds us and remains illumined in the darkest moments of our lives. And let that comfort of knowing that you are surrounded in light that is manifested in the love of each of us here this evening, but also the love of others who know you and love you, that will be with you. And you will remain in my prayers, and I'm sure in each one of us, as we go through with you this time of trial and this surgical procedure that we hope will bring about a complete rectification of the cancer, and then another one that will help bring about healing for your kidneys.
Amen.
Jeff, we are with you. And that's something you can count on when you're laying on that table. Remember those who love you.
I can't thank you all enough for coming here, especially when we do get so many people in the room. I know that it limits the ability for everyone to contribute and talk, but you've been beyond patient and beyond kind to take an entire evening to be here on our humble little program. Rabbi, especially, welcome to you, and I do have some bad news for you, sir. You are part of the family now, so we will call on you again.
I'm blessed to be asked. Matthew, thank you for including me. Jeff, thank you.
And the door is always open to you, so I very much hope that this will not be the only time that you come and see us. And please know that if you have something that you want to bring to us, please don't wait for us to reach out. Please, if you have something that you would like to bring to the program, please do. And it doesn't have to be an hour and a half. It could be, quick 5-10 minute message or whatever it might be. You are welcome here. You're part of the family, and we're honored that you could be here.
Thank you.
For those of you out there, I don't know when I will see you again. For some of you, that ain't a bad thing. For some of you, it might be. I do this program for a lot of different reasons. I do it because I just old-fashioned love radio. I just do. I just love radio. And I do it because I think it is a niche in the radio world that is lacking. Somebody who's just living paycheck to paycheck, or depending on how this goes in the next few months, not living at all. Just in the fight with you. Living day by day, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to love, trying to be a decent human being, trying to turn the other cheek, trying to do unto others, and at the same time getting pissed off occasionally, getting angry occasionally. I happen to deeply enjoy a good Guinness once or twice a month. Who's definitely overweight. And yet, I've had a lot taken from me in the Reagan era. A lot. It seems that every year we move on, the harder I work, the less that comes out of it. And yet, still, these special friends, these 2 radio stations, a wife downstairs that I do not deserve, are all still here. Now, a lot of this will look pretty darn silly if come Wednesday morning everybody says, "You're fine." This then looks very silly. And it looks terribly overdramatic. But there's a lot of derivations of the saying, but there's only, in a sports vernacular, there's only two things that are undefeated: time, or actually outside of sports, there's only 2 things that are undefeated, or that are definites. That's what it is. There's only 2 things that are definite or unavoidable. Unavoidable is the word I was looking for: death and taxes. So it's coming. It's coming. I hope it doesn't come for all of you out in the audience for another 100 years. But it's coming. And we can at least, I think, be mature enough, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that in a derisive way, but mature enough to say, yeah, it is. So let's not live recklessly, but live happily. Let us not be selfish, but unselfish. I'm reminded of 2 great speeches, and I will butcher both, because I always butcher quotes. George is very well aware. You know, Dr. King gave his speech shortly before he was assassinated to say, "I see these things on the other side." That we journey up this mountain, and when we cross the top and head to the other side, I see these things. I see a world of equality. I see a world of when people are judged by the content of their character, when white and black and rich and poor stand together. And he also then said, "I may not get there with you." I think there will be, at some point, whether it's next week or next month or in 2026 or 2028 or 2058, there will be a great progressive awakening in this country and a renewal of everything that we believed in. I may not get there with you, but I do believe that it will come. President Kennedy said, you know, I think the very overlooked part of the moonshot speech was, we choose to go to the moon and do the other things. President Kennedy did not just want to go to the moon and do the other things. It's Bobby that asked us to look at ourselves in the mirror as a country and say, how do we allow these things? where black men are treated as subhuman, where families are so poor they can't feed themselves, where families throughout Appalachia lived without running water and electricity, and their children couldn't go to school. How do we allow such things? Who are we? We choose to go to the moon and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. This will be hard, but it is my hope that I will see you on the other side.
Yeah.